Neika, can you seriously say with a straight face that haunted houses are scary? You're such a child. It's all fake, Mummy said, with her eyes large and sparkling. Haunted houses, huh? I went to one at the theme park when I was a kid, but I don't remember it being scary, Emiko continued, narrowing her well-shaped eyes with sharp edges. Early Saturday afternoon. We gathered at the park we always hung out at. The three of us were in different grades, so we rarely did anything at school together. It was at this year's summer school festival that the three of us first started hanging out together. Each of us were our grade's representatives for the executive committee, and the more we worked together, the more we got along, and before long, we naturally gravitated towards each other. Seeing us chat with each other as equals, it was unlikely that anyone saw us as coming from different grades. I laughed and clucked my tongue as the two of them chatted, but inside, I prayed that they'd quickly wrap up and move on to another topic. Ghosts and monsters and curses and whatnot. To be honest, I hated that sort of thing. Of course, I didn't believe in them, but that wasn't the problem. Apparently, there are rumours about that new haunted house at the theme park over there. They say that if you go in, that you'll never leave, and stuff like that. Mummy spoke about it as if it wasn't something terribly ominous. Shall we check it out? The two of them ignored my surprised voice, and already had their hearts set on it. Yeah, we have to check it out at least once. They both smiled and turned at the same time. Of course, you're coming too, aren't you, Neika? Yeah. Yeah, of course. Why did I say something I wasn't really thinking? The two of them seemed satisfied with that, and then turned to leave. With nothing else I could do, I quickly followed them. As we passed through the trees, a building rose just ahead of us that looked like a haunted house. It was a lot smaller than I expected, and if it wasn't in a theme park, then you could easily walk right past it without even noticing it. Perhaps it was due to the surrounding trees, but the area seemed rather dim and the air heavier than usual. Wow, it's a lot more atmospheric than I thought it would be. I wonder if there's anyone else inside. When we reached the quiet, solitary gate, there was indeed a wooden sign in front of it that said, "The Tiny Haunted House." I took a quick look around the area. Look at the building. The Tiny Haunted House building didn't look like a theme park attraction, but rather just like a Western manor. It had a scaly roof with triangular windows, and honestly seemed kinda nice. As it turned out, a plate on the cornerstone stated that it had been moved from a private house in Salem, New England, that was built around the start of the 18th century. Although, that might also have been part of the whole act. It's too quiet. Is it even open? Mummy asked, and then the heavy steel lattice gate suddenly creaked and opened inward. Welcome to the haunted house. If you are brave enough, please step through the gate and come inside. An announcement played alongside some crackling from something black above the door. Looking closer, the black thing was a fake crow. Wow, that's well made, Emiko said, impressed. It really is. Mummy clucked her tongue. I looked up again at the crow as they spoke. Its neck appeared bent at an odd angle as it looked down at us. It really was well made. It was creepy. We passed through the garden and up to the front door. This time, a wax figure dressed like a maid stood before the heavy steel door. The figure held what looked like the entrance fee box in its hands. The two in front of me put their money in one after the other. I hesitated for a moment, but then I resigned myself and put my money in too. The door opened with a loud creak. "Brave ladies, I will pray for your good fortune," the maid figure said with a clang, lifting its head. The face seemed to be grinning. I followed the other two, wanting nothing more than to run away. Inside was rather cramped, making it difficult for the three of us to walk together, and on top of that, the continuing hall was dark and damp. Anxious, I forcibly grabbed both girls' hands. "Reika, are you already scared?" Emiko said, sounding amused. Then Mummy continued, "If you're scared up the back, do you want to swap places?" They squeezed my hands as they laughed, so I sighed in relief. The world went black as the door closed behind us. "Oh no, I can't see a thing." "Yeah, I feel like I'm going to lose balance." In contrast to my panic, Emiko was exceedingly calm. "Welcome to my mansion," a voice spoke above us. I looked up and saw a bronze statue dressed like a gentleman, bathed in blue light. Its eyes lit up through some sort of mechanism. "This building features doors to all sorts of different spaces. Where you go is up to you. And if this mansion is to your likings, then you are most welcome to stay here as a resident as well. However, please do be careful that you do not upset the other residents under any circumstances. Well then, the first door will now open." The light suddenly went out, and a dim blue light appeared at our feet. It cast a creepy light across all our faces. "Mummy, your face is scary," I said cheerfully, trying to suppress my fear. "Come on, the fun starts now," Mummy said in return, her excited voice full of both hope and worry. We moved forward, poking at each other, and the light at our feet moved forward with us. In contrast to the old look of the building outside, this high-tech feature actually made me feel a sense of affinity with those who built the building, rather than fear. But even so, this was all just for show. Even though it was something that would please television networks and magazines that might cover this place, I really couldn't sense anyone else in there other than us. Well, that way was probably scarier. And, as expected, the other two proceeded with light footsteps, clearly enjoying themselves. Pitter-patter, pitter-patter. I heard what sounded like a small noise. "Hey, did you hear that just now?" "Hear what?" Mummy answered with a smile. "It's like the scares haven't even started yet, right?" "I don't know about that." Follow the other two. Bang! The roof directly above us seemed to rotate, and then an upside-down samurai figure fell down with a bang. We stopped right before running into it. "Kya!" Mummy jumped back in surprise. I did as well, colliding with the wall. Ah, that sure got me. Although scared, once Mummy realised it was just a doll, she laughed and admired the workmanship. Like the figure earlier, it really was well made, and the expression of pain on the samurai's face was indescribably creepy. Emiko admired it. The lights suddenly turned red. Then the samurai's arms, which had been stuck to its side, suddenly dropped towards the floor. It looked just like it had been holding out with all of its strength. A chill ran down my spine. With a bang, the dangling samurai started back up towards the ceiling. That's the first time I've seen such a doll in a haunted house. How fancy, Mummy said, sounding excited. Same. I'm excited to see what else they have now. We proceeded down the dark path. What's that? Mummy pointed ahead of us. I squinted and looked closer. Masks lined the walls on either side of us. They looked like no masks, but it was hard to tell what expression they were making. It was impossible to see anything but fear on their faces as lights shone on them from below. Although to the other two, they probably looked like they were having fun. Something Japanese again, huh? Mummy muttered something like that. Then she suddenly stopped. Huh? It's a dead end. At the end of the mask-lined path, there was nothing but a wall. There was no way through this way. There's gotta be something in here, Mummy said, sounding excited. Something in here. I checked over both their shoulders. I found something that might work. There was one mask with glowing eyes. If we did something with that, maybe we'd be able to proceed forward. I told both of them that. What should we do with that mask then? I mean, you've got to put it on, right? The two of them laughed. Well, do you want to try it on, Reika? Emiko said, poking fun at me. Let's do it. I couldn't just remain scared the whole time. I reached out for the mask. It glared at me with cold lights. Huh? I couldn't get the mask off the wall, but I was able to turn it to the right. The wall in front of us opened. There was a path behind it. Well then, let's go. We continued on. The path led to a wide room that looked to be full of paths like a maze. From the sign stating entrance, the paths were so thin that only one person could barely fit. Concerned with how scared I looked, Emiko went first, and then Mummy went behind me, sandwiching me between them. After walking straight for a short while, a dimly lit wall made a bang and rotated to reveal a figure of a woman with long hair in a white kimono holding a shamisen. Gah! Oh, they got me again. Emiko, walking in front of me, seemed even more surprised than me, and she then scratched her cheek with a laugh. The life-size figure moved and its right hand started to play the shamisen. A shrill sound rang out. It gradually got faster and soon filled the area like a scream. Then one of the strings broke. The figure's head drooped along with the reverberating sound, and then stopped moving. The lights slowly turned red, and the white kimono appeared to be stained with blood. "This figure sure is well made, huh?" Mummy said. I felt the same way. "What's going on here?" Mummy reached out for the figure. "Stop her." "Hey, I don't think you're allowed to touch it," I said to her. "It would be a violation of manners to touch it." "Yeah, that's true." Then Mummy turned around to look at me. The eyes of the woman playing the shamisen suddenly shot open. She reached out for Mummy, facing the other way, and grabbed her from behind. "Kya!" Naturally, Mummy screamed. The wall rotated again. The figure disappeared behind it, with Mummy still in her grip. "Hang on, what's going on here? Mummy? Mummy?" Emiko banged on the wall. "What should we do?" All the colour drained from my face. "There's nothing we can do. We have to keep going. We'll meet up with her again at some point." I didn't exactly agree with her, but I started walking with Emiko anyway, leaving Mummy behind. There was a spiral staircase at the end of the hall. There were candles attached to the stone walls, and the atmosphere felt different to everything else we'd seen up until that point. There was a room lying in wait at the end that was also different to everything else we'd thus far seen. It was a large, Western-style room made of marble, with a high ceiling and numerous candelabras. There were also various polished gold decorations lined up on the walls. It was a luxurious room that brought to mind noble families from the Middle Ages. And there was a young wax figure couple dressed in colourful, fancy clothing who danced in rhythm with the music. They clunked and clanged with each turn they made. "Was that Mummy just now?" Emiko said. I looked at the figures. They turned as they danced, so it was hard to tell. Then one of the wax figures grinned at us. It gracefully extended a hand. It was the male noble. He was handsome and well-dressed. If he were a real person, you might call him a prince. But it was a doll, so it was just creepy. "Why don't you try dancing with it?" "Leave it to Emiko." "Fine, I'll do it." Emiko stepped forward and took the doll's hand. Then they started dancing. Emiko was such a skilled dancer that she was beyond that of the dancing doll. Paying careful attention to our surroundings, I looked for Mummy. Finally, the music stopped. The door to the next room creaked open. Finished with her dance, Emiko approached me. "You didn't find Mummy?" I nodded, and we passed through the door that had just opened. A hall extended into the darkness. What is going on here? I finally voiced my fears. All I could think about was reaching the exit. We proceeded a short distance, and then we hit a T-junction. To the right, the faces of young men were lined up, while to the left, the faces of elderly men. The youth of the right. "Shall we go right?" I suggested. "I don't especially care either way," Emiko answered. We turned right and then continued on our way. We proceeded a short distance and this time found ourselves in front of a narrow tunnel. Looked like we'd have to pass through it one at a time. "Who's going to go first?" "I'll go first." "I'll go first," I said hesitantly. I didn't know what would be waiting for us in the next room, but I didn't want to wait here all by myself. "Okay, Be careful." I nodded and jumped down the slide. It wasn't quite pitch black inside, as a few lights were on. The walls were entirely made of mirrors, and I could see myself in them. What a horrid design. I made it through the tunnel. When I poked my head out, there were mirrors placed at various angles on two of the walls. "Whoa," I said before I could stop myself. I could see myself reflected everywhere. Each of them looked different to all the others. Some stretched up and down, others left and right. I looked squished in some, but either way, there were endless odd reflections of myself. "You done yet?" I heard Emiko's voice coming from above. "Yeah," I answered. She soon came down the slide as well. "All right, let's continue on," Emiko said. "But which way?" I looked at the countless mirrors again, and our reflections were so messed up that it was hard to tell who was who, making me feel somewhat dizzy. "You done yet?" A small, lazy voice suddenly called out from the tunnel behind us. It was Mummy. "Mummy, it's us! Get down here!" Emiko yelled back. We waited for Mummy to come down, but no matter how long we waited, she didn't come. I wonder what's wrong. Confused, we peeked into the tunnel. Bang! Mummy's shoe collided with my face. What bad timing. Kya! Holding my face, I tried to stand up, and then Emiko screamed. I soon realized why. It wasn't Mummy who came down the slide. It was the doll of a child. It was so realistic that it was creepy. The doll tried to climb up onto my knees. Kya! We ran. Then the mirror in front of us opened up. It was the exit. We ran for it. There were even more dolls in the next room. Wax figures sat around a long table eating dinner. As soon as we entered the room, the dolls started moving with a clang. Unlike the dance room, these ones weren't fancy. Skinny men and women ate in silence, lifting their bread and forks up and down. The candlelight that looked like it might go out at any second added to the creepy ambience. The only thing you could hear was the clanging of the dolls. For some reason, it felt like we shouldn't make any noise, and so we walked forward carefully. Bang, 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 bang. A doll that looked like a child came running out from the shadows of the table. It looked the same as the doll that had just come out of the tunnel. The doll then presented a red apple to me. Looking closer, the doll's expression was creepily warped. It seemed to be smiling. A blue light shone at its feet, lighting it up in a creepy manner. The little girl doll clanged as she presented the apple to me. Thanks. Ah, thanks. I took the apple. It was real, and a single bite had been taken out of it. The doll seemed satisfied with that and continued staring at me, as though urging me to eat it. Just throw it away, Emiko said. Yeah. I threw the apple away. All the dolls at the table turned to look at me at once. We opened the next door as though to flee. We walked down the hall in silence. I wonder where Mummy is, Emiko muttered. I felt heavy-hearted thinking about what might be lurking in wait for us next. I can't do this anymore. I suddenly spat out how I really felt. Shall we go? Mummy probably already left ahead of us. I didn't want to go any further. But how do we get out of here? The haunted house should have emergency exits in case of an actual emergency. We should be able to get out that way, but we hadn't seen anything like that so far. Ah! Emiko pointed ahead of us. I turned to see what it was. There was something that didn't really fit a haunted house exhibit. A phone box. Thank God! Maybe we can contact the person in charge with that. Emiko and I ran for the phone. But something flitted through my mind. Why was there a phone box in a place like this? Suddenly, it started ringing. Emiko and I looked at each other. She slowly reached for the receiver. Hello? How do you do, ladies? It was the same voice that came from the bronze statue out the front. You two sure have done well to make it this far. We'd like to leave now. Please let us out, Emiko said exhaustedly. I cannot allow that. Rather, I will gladly let you join us if you will become our friends. Let us out. And Mummy? Where's Mummy? Well, if you are going to refuse, then there is little I can do. I have a most excellent subordinate. Leave it to him. The phone suddenly hung up. Emiko's hand holding the receiver trembled. We were scared, but all we could do was keep going. Before long, we arrived at another suspicious-looking room. The entire room was lit up with a dim red light. I looked around for a moment. The room was a lot smaller than what we'd experienced until that point, and there were no dolls either. Instead, there were all sorts of things hanging from the walls that made our legs tremble. They were Western-style torture devices that I had seen numerous times before on TV and in books. This cylindrical room was a reproduction of a torture chamber. From what I could see, there was no door on the other side. The walls were covered in torture tools that looked weathered and heavy with age, as though they had once been actually used. There was a human-shaped coffin full of blades large and small, and several old ropes hung from the ceiling as well. Further in the room was a guillotine as well. All of them were creepy and seemed to be covered in bloodstains. I didn't know where to go, so I stepped into the middle of the room. Emiko stood there, bewildered. What should we do? Maybe there's no exit. My voice echoed. We waited a while, but there was no signs of any door appearing. Emiko and I looked at each other. Suddenly, the wall next to us started to move, and a muscular man in a mask approached. Was he the person who ran this room? I could quickly guess what it was that he specialized in. He took one step towards us, and then another. Pick one, the man said in a low voice that seemed to tremble. Pick what? And how? Emiko said, her voice exhausted. Pick one, the man repeated. Wait for help. I'll go. Emiko stepped forward. This is a haunted house. It's not like I'm going to die. The man roughly grabbed her arm. He then shoved her inside the coffin. Then he closed the door. Bang! He then left the room, seemingly satisfied with his job finished. I stood in front of the coffin. Blood started to pour out of the gaps in it. The inside of it was full of sharp, pointy things. Emiko! On the verge of passing out, I reached out for the lid. Then, I slowly opened it. Huh? It was just like magic. Emiko was nowhere to be seen. Not her corpse, not anything. Relieved, I collapsed against the coffin. One of the points touched my nose. It hurt. Unconsciously, I reached out for it. It was the real deal. How is this thing put together? Either way, the fact remained that I was now separated from Emiko. I had to find both her and Mummy. I stepped outside the room. I decided to continue down the hall. Darkness spread out before me. A sound approached me from behind. Nervously, I turned around, but I was unable to see what it was in the dim light. Maybe it was Mummy and Emiko coming after me. It's too scary, so don't turn around. It sounded like bare footsteps. I stopped, and the sound behind me stopped too. When I picked up speed, so did the footsteps behind me. I started running before I could stop myself. Then the footsteps picked up speed as well. I screamed, then dropped to the ground and hugged my knees. Then the sound went right past me and seemed to disappear into the wall. Cautiously, I continued forward. I kept walking, and then I reached another door. I opened it. There wasn't anything especially surprising inside. It seemed to be a study. Although it was a bit of a letdown, I still nervously went inside. 3 of the walls were covered entirely in bookshelves and books. I opened the curtain and looked out the window. There I saw the forest and a sloping, open area. 1 or 2 lights turned on as well. They gradually got bigger, and then all gathered by the building. Doesn't look like there's anything in here to scare me. I was somewhat relieved. All of the books on the shelves appeared to be Western, and it didn't look like I'd be able to read any of them. There was only one on the desk that maybe I could. Looking closer, there was a notebook on top of the desk. Look at the notebook. I opened the notebook. It appeared to have been written by people who had come into the haunted house. There was a pen there as well. "What is this?" I said. There were only 2 simple things written in the book. "Help me, help me, help me, help me, help me. Let me out, let me out, let me out, let me out." I froze and couldn't say a thing. Being all by myself, of course I was afraid. I had to find Mummy and Emiko quickly. Then I heard something. I listened closer. Confused, I gripped the doorknob so I could proceed to the next room. Ah! I quickly withdrew my hand. The doorknob was scorching hot. It couldn't be. It couldn't be a fire, could it? It sounded like the burning of flames. The haunted house was on fire. I felt like I was going to pass out. I ran for the door I just came through. The doorknob wasn't hot. However, it was locked and I couldn't get through. I'm locked in. All hope was gone. Hee. Suddenly, I heard a creepy laugh echo inside the room. I never thought we'd get a guest on a night like this. I turned around. I didn't know when she came in, but an old lady sat in a chair by the window. She wore a triangular hat, like those you might see in a fairy tale, as well as black clothes. If I had to sum her up in a single word, it would be witch. "Yes, I am a witch," she said, as though reading my mind. "A guest has appeared for my final night, so of course I must greet her most courteously." The old woman cackled, baring her teeth as she did so. "What do you mean?" I asked. "Did you not see outside? Tonight is the night of the witch hunt. This mansion will burn down tonight. Hee 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 hee." The old woman seemed to have lost her mind and doubled over as she laughed. "No, how are we supposed to get out of here?" I asked, almost begging. "It's already too late." As if on cue, the outside of the window turned red. We didn't have much longer left. "But it's not like I don't know where the exit is." "Really? Can we really get out?" "Well, I can't say for certain, of course. Do you intend to escape there?" "Of course." I was anxious, but answered clearly. Then the old woman laughed joyfully again. "Aren't you forgetting something? I'm a witch. Are you really going to believe me knowing that?" That was true. It was possible she was lying. But I had to trust her with my last wish. Even if I didn't believe her, there was no other way out. "I'll follow you." "Good girl. I hear you." The old woman slowly stood up and then opened the door. Flames swarmed the room looking for oxygen. The flames approached me and then split in two right in front of me. "Well then, shall we go? It's this way." The old woman walked through the door and made a path through the flames. "It's okay. This way." I nervously followed the old woman. It was hot, and the building was definitely burning, but it wasn't hard to breathe. The old woman walked down a path I'd never seen before. "In here," she said, and opened the door. The room was pitch black. "Go through here." I looked inside. It was too dark to see anything. I cautiously entered. My foot hit something. It was a skull. I kicked it and screamed. "Calm down!" The old woman snapped at me. "Stop jumping at each and every little thing. This is a storeroom. The exit is just over there." "You're not coming?" "My exit is a different one. Listen, no matter what happens, don't be surprised, okay? Just keep going straight." Having said that, the old woman closed the door. Then the darkness claimed control. I heard an unknown voice scream. I started crying before I could stop myself. I was scared, but the only thing I could do was keep going. I walked and walked, but still didn't reach another door. The darkness made it hard to tell how much time had passed as well. But light seemed to be coming from somewhere. My eyes gradually adjusted to it. There were all sorts of objects I couldn't place at my feet. I carefully stepped around them so as not to kick them. Bang! I'd been looking down the entire time, so I hit my head on something. What was it? I reached out. It was round, soft, and floating in the air. Our gazes met. I somehow managed to stop from screaming. Suddenly, a massive sound tore through the room. All sorts of sounds assaulted my ears. I covered my ears and ran. Then, all the sounds stopped. I heard a door open. A red light shone in front of me. It was the way out. I ran towards it. I was almost there when I realized that the door may have opened automatically. An old hand hung from the doorknob. That hand had, apparently, opened it for me. Thank you ever so much. I passed through the door, tears in my eyes. Before me was a world of flames. And I thought I had finally found my way out. All hope died. I was ready to pass out. But right in front of me, I saw the exit. I could get out there. I ran as fast as I could. I think both my hair and my clothes must have been burnt, but I was able to escape from the haunted house. Thank God! I'm saved! I fell to the ground like I was rolling in the grass. I was able to escape from the haunted house, and I didn't die in the fire. I was so relieved that I cried. But I had forgotten something important. Mummy and Emiko. Where on earth had they gone? Mummy! Emiko! I continued calling out their names to the curious onlookers watching the fire.